The RBA doesn't care about rising house prices. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee. We're going to have a look at an article written by Eliza Bavin from Yahoo Finance. Absurd house prices are not our problem, says the RBA. They don't care about, house prices. It's not part of their mandate here in Australia. Now let's have a look at this clip. This quote. The RBA will not raise rates to slow housing boom. Will not raise rates to slow the housing boom. Mr. Lowe reiterated that the RBA does not and would not explicitly target house prices with its interest rate policies. They're not worried about it, guys. It's not part of their mandate. It's not part of their job. And the cash rate, just in case you haven't been following, is sitting at 0.1%. Now, a few years ago, 3% was considered the emergency rate. So we are now the emergency that emergency rate was there for. Instead, he said it was up to the government and financial regulators to address community concerns about soaring housing costs. I recognize that low interest rates are one of the factors contributing to higher housing prices, and that high and rising housing prices raise concerns for many people, he said. There are various tools other than higher interest rates to address these concerns, leaving monetary policy to maintain its strong focus on the recovery in the economy, jobs, and wages. That's what the RBA are worried about. They don't care about housing, guys. It's not in their mandate. They're more worried about jobs than houses. So, the Reserve Bank of Australia will not lift the cash rate to cool surging house prices, the RBA governor said. Now, this is from March in 2021, everyone. So this is months old when he was talking about this. So I'm wondering why Eliza's reminding us of this now. Okay, yep. Speaking in an address to the Annika Foundation, Lowe said house prices have surged 19% since the start of the pandemic. Lowe said raising the cash rate, currently sitting at a record low of 0.1, is not on the agenda for the bank, despite admitting it would help ease prices. While it is true that higher interest rates would, all else equal, see lower housing prices, that would also mean fewer jobs and lower wages growth. This is a poor trade-off in the current circumstances, he said. Instead, Lowe pointed to a number of public policy issues which are the responsibility of government that need to be addressed if we want housing prices to calm. Well, here's one. They need to increase supply. They need to increase the amount of housing that's available. They need to increase the amount of land that's available. The councils need to step back and make it easier for people to develop. Why do you have to, if you want to split a block off, why do you have to pay an insane amount of headworks charges when it's negligible, the increased load on the system? While monetary policy is contributing to higher housing prices at the moment, the way to address these concerns is through the structural factors that influence the value of the land upon which our dwellings are built, Lowe said. These factors include the design of our taxation and social security systems, planning and zoning restrictions, the type of dwellings that are built, and the nature of our transportation networks. These are all obviously areas outside the domain of monetary policy and the central bank. Though Lowe falls short of directly criticizing the federal government in this regard, dozens of property economists and experts have voiced that the lack of cohesive policy around housing has resulted in a triple crisis. Wages won't be rising anytime soon. Another major economic issue outlined by Lowe was of the stagnant wage growth, which has been impacting Aussies for years. Yes, and we'll show this chart here. This is the RBA's wage price index forecasts. They got it wrong in 2011, 2012, 2013, 14, 15, 16, and 17. And this is the wage price index growth. Well, for 2020, you can see it's still pretty low, guys. It's not, wages aren't growing. But how's our productivity? Is our productivity growing? Do we deserve a wage rise? That's the question. So, Lowe said wages need to be increasing by at least 3% before the bank considers raising interest rates, a target we remain well short of. Well, will we ever see rising rates? There's the real question, guys. With that 3% wage rise, are we ever going to see it? Even in industries where there have been strong demand for labour, wage increases remain mostly modest, he said. Our judgment is that it will take some time for wage increases to lift to a rate that is consistent with achieving the inflation target. A number of factors are to blame for low wages, Lowe added, indicating the long road ahead before we see a lift. There is a lot of inertia in the wage-setting process, and the experience of the past decade is unlikely to be reversed quickly, he said. So when will rates rise? Not until at least 2024, Lowe said. In fact, he dismissed the estimate made by some of the big four banks that rates could rise as soon as next year. I find it difficult to understand why rates rises are being priced in the next year or in early 2023, Lowe said. While policy rates may be increased in other countries over this time frame, the wage and inflation expectation experience in Australia is quite different to these other countries. What's happening elsewhere in the world doesn't need to apply directly here. Lowe said until the unemployment rate lowers, wages are boosted to at least 3%, and home prices come back under control, the bank has no plans to increase the cash rate. In today's low inflation world, we do not want to run the risk that we increase the cash rate on the basis of a forecast that ultimately does not come to pass, leaving inflation stuck below the target band, he said. We want to see actual results, not forecasted results, before we lift the cash rate. Once we do see these results, forecasts of inflation will again have a role to play, but we have to get there first. Lowe said the bank wants to see inflation around the middle of the target range, and he said he has reasonable confidence it will not fall below 2 to 3% range again. A judgment is that this condition for a lift in the cash rate will not be met before 2024. So there we go, everyone. They're not worried about housing prices. They're worried about wages and inflation. But, what's the solution or the takeaway here? Let's have a little talk. Now, here's the thing. If they're worried about inflation, how is housing calculated or taken into account in inflation? Just a question for you there. Because it isn't really to the factor that you'd imagine. Land really isn't counted in it. Land is what's going up. And the problem is you have to stash away so much money in deposits in order to save for that. It's having an impact on people's ability to spend and their quality of life. If they factored that into inflation, into the CPI figures, it'd be about, 0.5% higher? Maybe they might have met their target. Oh, well, that's just how it is. Maybe that is the solution, that they start factoring that as well into their CPI targets so then they can adjust the cash rate. But they're right. He's right. There's a bunch of systematic issues that need to be addressed as well. Councils, government, transportation, just the rigmarole you need to jump through, the hoops you need to jump through to get a house built. Welcome to Australia, everyone. Is there the political will to see a change? It'll be interesting to see at the next election. Labor seems to be prattling on and on and on about vaccine rollouts. It'll probably be a non-issue by the next election, and the next issue will be housing. What do you reckon? As always, let me know your thoughts and opinions on this one in the comments down below. Should the RBA factor housing into their mandate? What do you think? Like the NZ. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you're a fan of the channel and enjoy the content I create here, there are a few ways you can support us. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. Sign up for SelfWealth or Stake. Now, until the end of the month, Stake has a application process to get on the beta where you'd get brokerage-free, chess-sponsored shares until the end of until 2022. So, something to consider. Use my link, and I'll go up in the list. And then after that, their fees are meant to be $3 per trade. It's good to see some competition coming into that sector. We'll have to keep an eye on it. You can also support us by using Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or AussieBroadband, buying our merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. I'll see you next time.